trapped in the stratosphere by Professor A.N. Lowe.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Can you speak Venusian? Venetian. Venusian, yeah.
Nice sort of chap, ejaculated Victor. The others grinned. It's more like a musical comedy than sheer stark reality. I see you smile, the Martian Lord went on, but you will not smile when you hear what I have to say. We have heard you talking among yourselves. Because you have seen so much, you have been wondering at the things you have seen. ... Wondering what they all mean. You shall know, for you will never return to the Earth planet alive to tell what you have found out. ... You have been wondering, for example, what is the meaning of the mighty chasms which you have seen through your screen. And we Martians are not a little alarmed to find that some Earth brain is so mighty as to devise an apparatus like this, and to invent an instrument that can enable you to see and hear us. ... The mighty chasms you have seen were used by the ancient Martians to store the little rain that fell in their times. For in those days our chemists did not know how to manufacture the water we needed. ... Our great forebears, the primitive Martians, dug these great chasms with crude implements and pipes connecting them one with the other, so that when no water fell from the skies would be wasted. Oh, you read this one. Your Earth was only a molten mass. We were thinkers, inventors. We have learned how to wipe out disease, and we determined that you, germ-ridden Earth people, will not come to contaminate us.
Bloody immigrants.
Time to stop.
Oh, no, can't
We
keep
know
going.
1,000 times more about you and your race than you know about us.
Stop.
And a pound to keep going.
So we have £1 against £1.
50p to keep going.
Okay.
Art continues having them.
Keep going. Keep going. Right. Give us your money. Yeah, I'm coming round.
No, you can go.
Thanks very much. I can always go back the same way. I do have a plan B.
Okay, are we?
Yep.
So
we get at least the page for that.
Oh, I've lost my place now. Shall I go back to the game?
Oh, God.
It's supposed to be ejaculation.
We know 1,000 times more about you and your race than you know about us. ... We have watched and studied your planet with its savage tribes. ... There he goes again, said Victor. Hasn't got a high opinion of us. Shut up, said Peter and Philip together. Philip, Peter and Philip. Victor relapsed into silence while the Martian Lord continued in his thunderous voice. We on Mars have learned much. We know the stars and their meaning. No Martian lives for less than 1,000 years, and he can live longer if he wishes. As you have seen, we live under the ground, for our chemists supply us with the light and air we need. It'll all like burning again. I'm sorry, ...
Punctuation for a minute.
Time and events on the Earth planet are slow. ...
Okay.
In 1 minute here we live what would take you on the Earth a year to live. ... I've got slow talk. We have mastered many things. ...
Time to stop the ...
When we get to 5, and we know
50p
it's
for the
insanity.
dots to continue.
20p for dots to continue.
Right, okay, hang on.
Are we continuing?
Yeah, the dots.
We want dots.
We want the dots.
We
We want the dots.
Oh, God.
No Martian needs
Does
to speak
somebody
with his
else
lips
want
if he
dots?
does not so wish.
And
We communicate with thought waves. ...
Oh, no, this is so
No Martian need walk if he wishes to fly in the air. ... As long as he hovers and does does not have tracks. We have solved the mystery of transmitting power through space, ... We learned that 5,000 years ago, ...
That's because Tesla was actually a Martian reincarnated. Sorry.
We learned the secrets of celestial radio 3,000 years ago, ... Where Davy Travis broadcast. For 1,000 years we've been able to watch the stupid happenings on your Earth planet, ... There is nothing we do not know and understand. There are no children on our planet. We are grown up when we are born. Old age is unknown on Mars.
Yes.
Can you hear me? All three looked at each other, and then after a pause, Peter answered, "Yes." "We can hear you," he said vaguely to nowhere in particular. "It has taken you 4 years to answer my question, ... That is, 4 of your Earth years," thundered the Martian, ... You think you are clever because you have invented this paltry little ship.
Oh, enough already, a pan to stop.
And see so many things.
We have a pound to stop.
No, let's keep going.
No, not a pound to stop. I've had enough.
A little bit of classic Fiona Richmond's Galactic Girl.
Do what?
Okay. Did you buy the Black Gold cover?
No, I didn't find
Chapter 9. A Gilbertian situation. The door swung open. A syringe appeared. On the end of it was a breathless fat man. And on the end of him, an even more breathless Rubinsky.
Pardon?
Again.
Who's a Marinsky? What's a Marinsky?
The door swung open, a syringe appeared, on the end of it was a breathless fat man, and on the end of him was an even more breathless Rubinsky. Another monster!
What's a syringe kebab?
Could be, yeah.
That'll cost you £1.
Well, I think he's horizontal. Because that makes more sense than on the other end. The positional was the Rubinsky.
So, that fat man was a sandwich.
Yeah, it must be.
Must be filling the very old sandwich. Another monster, whispered Peggy, snuggling into Navik's manly chest. No, it's only Fat Man, the most venomous man in the galaxy, breathed Navek. The green slime, dressed in Tom's green shirt and Levi's.
He's each these sentences in a different novel.
Formed across the room and tried to gather itself up into some sort of greeting. An unenjoyable voice broke from the jelly. Welcome, Fat Man, and not a moment too soon. Sorry about the slight delay, spake the corpulent one. Overshot the lot. My module looks a little rough. It's smashed into the rocks on the other end of the island. But never mind that. Give me an arm and I'll give you your shot. The green blob pushed out an amoeboid tentacle.
Which is not an arm.
That's
an amoeboid tentacle.
Pseudopodia.
Pseudopodia, that's it, good one, Derek. A glint of steel caught the light from the broken window above them, then disappeared into the green jelloid lump. Having administered the dose, Fat Man stepped back to watch the transformation. It was almost immediate. Rubinsky, Navek and Peggy were goggle-eyed at the pool. It wobbled and it shook, and suddenly a human head popped out of the floppiness. This was soon followed by 2 arms, 2 legs and a torso. With a few last remaining dribbles of green.
I was just thinking in
Yeah.
that order, yeah.
With the last few remaining dribbles of green running down his face, Tom stood before them. Now that you're back in your human shape, you must lose no time in finding another female specimen to be your mate.
Pound to stop.
No, we need to know where this is going.
So you'll have to
We
have
have
to
a pound to stop and a pound to go on.
We need to be
2
a bit
to
more
1.
honest.
Pound to go on.
3 to 1.
I'll get it.
Okay. It's the most blatant.
Okay. Tom swung his bulk around slowly and surveyed his pretty one-time wife. Do we have to go to these lengths? He said with a flash of regret in his eyes. He crossed over to Peglet and bent down, cupping her face in his hand. It's such a pretty little thing. It is a shame to waste all that succulent flesh. Those long, strong legs, those amazing breasts, rock-hard nipples, sex-sucking lips, ...
Hey!
Tom seemed to be turning quite human. Peggy, who had shuddered at first to feel of this felon, was almost sick with fear at the way he was going on. Can I give her one for old time's sake?
Well, what?
Subtle, isn't she?
The eager Tom asked Fatman, making to unzip his jeans. Peggy looked up in terror and then saw the familiar bulge of his back.
What?
She can't read that big shirt.
I know you're very much testing today. I gave her one for old time. No, Peggy looked up in terror and saw the familiar bulge of his banana getting bigger.
It's fruit!
Please, ... no, she shrilled. And it was
What
a turn
number 5 a day, no doubt.
And it was her time to stiffen with fright. There's no time for Oak to chastise Fatman. We have porridge instead. Now, off you
We
trot.
have what?
Is this a recipe?
Let's read that one again. There's no time for Oaks to chastise Fatman. We'll have porridge instead.
There's no time for
We'll have porridge instead.
Now, off you trot, Rabinski, and make 3 bowls of the steaming stuff. And make sure
You don't make them like this anymore.
And make sure mine has plenty of brown sugar and cream. I know you're no Craddock, but make sure you have a lovely Fanny.
I want to read that again.
No, I'm not going to run those one, hang on. Make sure mine has plenty of brown sugar and cream. I know you're no Craddock, but make sure you have a lovely Fanny. We're going to sort out the best way of disposing of this pair. Your delicate ears should never ever have to hear such dastardly details. Rabinski scurried out of the shed with an extreme look of surprise on her face. He had never shown such concern before. ... The thought of porridge made Nevik and Peggy realise they had been imprisoned. Lying in this drafty shed for the last 2 days.
Well, doing porridge.
Did nothing to eat at all. They were starving. ... Ravenous. You don't need anything to eat. You won't be hungry long. You'll be dead soon, comforted the corpulent one. You dirty bastards, spat Nevek through his gag. Rabinski moved happily around the kitchen, laying the table and setting out 3 monster bowls of Scottish oats.
I thought they weren't having oats.
We're going to have banana.
When everything was ready, she ran down off the garden path to call the man and moss to the table. 2 pairs of eyes watched her leave and made a dash for the food. This boy was starving too. By the time the terrible trio trooped into the kitchen, 2 of the porridge bowls were licked clean. The other had marks of string foot of bird that remained. Who's been eating my porridge?
To stop, you can't stop that. If you gave that to Bernard, it would kill him.
Right, we have £1 to stop.
50 to carry on.
So we have £1.50 to carry on, 1 to stop.
50 to stop on humanitarian.
Another pound to carry on.
That's 3 to 2.
I'll put another pound.
3 to 2.50.
To stop.
Another
Okay,
50 to carry
I
on.
don't want to be responsible for
20p to stop.
another person.
Still ahead on, carrying on as well.
Pound to stop.
Stopping.
The stops are,
150 to carry on.
I think the carry-ons have it just slightly.
Another 20p to stop.
Another 20p to carry on.
10p to stop.
I think we're going to be a bit more substantial, I think.
More substantial than porridge?
I'm just putting another 50 to carry on.
Another 50 to carry on. Another pound to stop.
Pound to carry on.
Don't blame me if I've lost count, but I think the
carry-ons
carry-ons.
What a carry-on.
But I can't tell you whether it's by 20p or 25 or 30. Carry on.
So you want me to carry
Everybody
on?
else.
They're trying to kill me.
This was to stop the carry on.
I'm trying to stop it. You're going to be broke, Pat. You've got your morning in there yet.
Just about.
Well, then to stop, but
So I've got to carry on. Where can you find us? Because he local Dr. Smith only
I had a feeling it would be only.
oh, this is dire.
Don't be so silly, Snap Ravinsky. Stop messing about. Stop messing about. I don't like this. Something really strange is going on here. Look at the marks in this bowl. They weren't made by any human hand. The two earthlings looked suspiciously towards Tom. He caught their questioning gaze. I was in the shed with you, he said. I haven't had anything to do with this. Anyway, we're all friends, on the same side. I wouldn't double-cross you. Fat Man looked reassured. He wouldn't have done, however, had he seen what was going on outside. Eva and Dan had instructed R.C. and Gladys to stand guard at the garden gate. Eva didn't want to see them what she and her soldier were up to. After all, they would rush into Fat Man's aid and ruin their plans. Stealthily, she and Dan crept around the house. Eva positioned herself
That would be good.
poisoned herself rather than
Just to get out of the book.
positioned herself outside the back door while Dan left himself by the front and crept across the hall into the kitchen. They synchronised their watches and at the appointed second kicked the doors in and flung themselves into the fray. Reach, they shouted in unison, brandishing their ray guns at the bandits. Fat Man's fat hand lunged for his holster, but Dan was too quick for him and squeezed his trigger. The stunned Fat Man fell to the floor. Splat. Rabinsky was stunned too, not by a ray gun, but by the sight of Eva Nokobolikov.
No, not really.
Make your
Not by any ray gun, but by the sight of Eva Nokobolikov, her lesbian leg over. With mixed emotions, she asked, "Who are you?" Before Eva could answer, Fat Man came too, his beady eyes fixed on Eva. She smiled victoriously at the creep on the floor, and glint of golden lashes and recognition blinded the poor sod. "It's Mr. Big's horse," she shouted to Rabinsky. "She was at the ball, don't you remember?" "Well, it was so dark there I could hardly see anything," said Rabinsky, somewhat flustered. She silently prayed that Ivor would not disclose the intimate lesbian act of Fat Man. If she did, it would all would be up. Visions of salt mines filled her with terror. "Oh yes, it's her all right," continued Fat Man. "You traitor," he screeched. "You treacherous vassal." "Enough of that, you fat fool. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. You know all about your proposed super race, and as for you, ... She stared hard at Tom. "You're nothing but a green blob." Dan, all this time, had become increasingly confused. She's not the only one. "What have you done with my boss, Nevek?" None of the three answered. "You'll tell me sooner or later," continued Eva, approaching Fat Man. She sauntered up to the large person, smiled and swung a leg, and gave him a vicious blow in the balls. He doubled over, writhing in agony. Ivor didn't have to ask a second time. The gibbering, cowardly mess on the floor wheezed the answer to the question. "He's in the garden shed." "Lead the way, fat guts," said Ivor, driving the barrel of a ray gun between his buttocks. What? The blubber shambled to his feet and led the way out of the kitchen door up to the garden path. ... Again. Dan brought up Eva's rear and soon
Here you go.
and soon the quintet reached the bolted door of the lean-to.
I thought it was a shed.
Ivor viciously snatched the key from Tom's neck and almost severed his head from the body. You cover them, Dan, while I unlock the door. Her agile fingers played with the padlock. The clasp broke open and the door swung back.
£2 to stop.
Pound to stop. Which J.T. Edson's masterpieces is this?
This is Old Devil and the Mule Train.
Oh, at least it isn't Bonduki.
Oh gosh. What a surprise.
You spooked.
How did those get there?
Oh, back there.
Although a person who had only been acquainted with Tommy O'Casey in his capacity of valet might have questioned the wisdom of the decision, Old Devil Harden had not the slightest qualms over sending him in search of the Arizona Hockey Activos Regiment. In fact, the Texian was confident he was more than equal to the task. Before he had been compelled to leave his homeland with no possibility of ever returning, whilst attending the 21st Annual Convention of Western Writers of America at Fort Worth, Texas in 1974, and during a second visit the following year, the author tried to discover what had caused Tommy O'Casey. This was not his real name, but an Americanized corruption of the one he gave when picked up by Captain Jeremiah Harden's ship to leave his native land. The members of the Harden fought and Blaze clan to whom I spoke were adamant that because of the circumstances and the high social standing of the families involved, all of whom have descendants holding positions of influence and importance in Japan at the time of writing, it is inadvisable, even at this late date, to make the facts public. The little Oriental had been a fully qualified samurai. The samurai, a member of the lower nobility's elite warrior class, usually acting as a retainer of the daimyos or hereditary Japanese feudal barons. The power and authority of the formerly highly influential warrior class. I'm almost at another footnote.
There was a bit to stop.
There was a bit.
£1.10 for another footnote.
I'll go on, I'll make that another 40 on top.
We just have the footnotes, maybe.
Can we just have the footnotes?
Yeah,
Okay, that's going to be more interesting.
Yeah, I think the footnotes would be more interesting.
During the mid-19th century, an increasing contact with the Western world was bringing an ever-growing realization that the retention of a hereditary and privileged warrior class was incompatible with the formation of a modern and industrialized society. Various edicts issued by the Emperor between 1873 and 76 abolished the special rights of the samurai, and although some of their traditional concepts were
We have a
retained,
pound to
Hang on, we
It's
paid
in the middle of the
good
thing
money
there.
for this footnote.
We paid money for the footnote.
The footnote.
That was the footnote.
that was that footnote, but I've got another 2 footnotes on the opposite page, which I'll throw in for free. So
Not put 50p in, not 2.
£1 for the footnotes.
Right.
Okay.
You really like those footnotes, don't you?
God, we're going to be
Although
bored to death.
primitive kinds of firearms had been known in Japan since the arrival of Portuguese explorers in 1543, the samurai had small regard for them, and little time was devoted to learning how to use them. Footnote 5. Blue Road. A horse with a more or less uniform mixture of white and black or deep mahogany bay-coloured hairs over the entire body. If the dark hair is a sorrel yellowish to red golden, it is a strawberry road. If an ordinary bay, a red road. I bet you didn't know that. Educational.
Definitely a pound to stop. Please.
Can I suggest
Please stop.
You've got a J.T. Edson novel. I've got a J.T. Edson novel. Why don't you read the novel and I read the footnotes?
That's a good
You read
idea.
it. Tell me when there's a footnote coming in.
Oh, there's
they make more sense?
While he had been alert and watchful, the little Oriental was not holding his bow, as its length would have made it too unwieldy to be used with any great effect in a woodland, and he had preferred to leave his hands free from manipulating his sword. Footnote.
The correct, grammatically perfect original language is called Kiswahili.
You get to the next footnote.
Okay, right. If Chorrel had not been so debilitated, she could have been drawn conclusions from the weapons that have been used. While the Amazons, footnote 2, footnote. Oh, right, yeah. There's a footnote.
From Goa Safari, start the journey. Amri Kwan Nani, by whose order, literally, order of who. Ami Wabwara Nkaba, by order of the big master. In the version sung by members of the King's African Rifles, the last two lines were Amri Yamwala Captain, Amri Ya KR, meaning order of KR, King's Regulations.
Well, hey.
However, the circumstances might have changed, and if he needed to support his employer, archery would provide him with the very best means of doing so. Very old and wise Louis Yan is saying, which I just made up, old devil drawled, delighted at having an opportunity to do so. A man should always be ready, then he wouldn't have to get ready. Footnote.
Knowing that there was no longer any future for them in Kenya after independence had been granted, all the other members of the Greystoke clan had accepted an invitation from David Innes, details of whose career are given in Edgar Rice Burroughs' series of Pellucidar biographies.
And the Grusac were archers. The former did not employ a simple but very effective throwing stick.
Raptors, birds of prey trained for falconry, are kept hooded and fastened to stands, not in cages.
Unlike his companion, who looked pained at the comment, Texian was already armed in a suitable manner to cope with whatever emergency should arise. With an overall length of 58 7/8 inches, the weapon resting across the crook of his left elbow had a similar general appearance to that of a so-called Kentucky footnote.
To avoid confusion, the author uses Earth's and not Zilikian's names for animals, except in the case of different kinds of gatas, distances, and the measuring of time.
Or if the mayor should make a distress signal, Shambuna's feelings were a former Mantanero. Footnote.
Moran, a member of a warrior clan.
Rifle. A closer examination would have disclosed that it was a far more sophisticated device. It was, in fact, an invention of the Mormon gunsmith Jonathan Browning. Footnote.
Mukuki, a throwing as opposed to a stabbing spear.
This is working strangely.
I think £5 to stop us doing this. I think
£5 to carry on.
5 to 5.
Up another pound carry on.
Another £5 to carry on. 7 to 5.
It's the last bagful.
Oh, God.
Sorry, okay then.
Oh, God.
Coming alongside Isabel, coming along
Right,
Isabel.
there was more money, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's the carry-ons and got it, thank you. Okay. Coming alongside Isabel without having aroused a display of hostility, Dawn unhurriedly returned to the sandal. Pacific as the mare had been until that happened.
Translation.
Yeah. Was the Pacific as the mare? Is that still
yes,
happening?
she's being peaceful.
All right. She started to exhibit her objections almost as soon as the girl was settled on her back.
Jiggers, also known as chiggers or chigos, the Tunga penetrans flee, the females of which bury under the skin, particularly of the feet, to lay eggs. On hatching, the larvae feed upon the host flesh, causing sores, and in extreme case, resulting in the loss of toes.
Amazing, real danger.
Designed to meet the requirements for a fire. Designed to meet the requirements for a firearm which could discharge several shots in succession and without the need to be loaded individually. Footnote.
The third of Charlo's male adherents had been killed while chasing Dawn.
Right, showing speed rather than strength, she intermingles swapping ends with the timing of the moon. Sun fishing, footnote.
Brachiation. Swinging from branch to branch through the trees. I think you'll like the next one.
So the Browning slide repeating rifle, footnote.
Sexual dimorphism. Differences in size and colour between the male and female of a species for the purpose of easy identification.
But without the vertically effective pinwheeling, footnote.
Due to the similarity to gorillas and the fact that they had occupied the same general terrain, and also because of the true status of the Mangani had yet to be established, it is possible that they were responsible for most of the reports of gorillas attacking natives and supposedly abducting women for sexual reasons.
Plants must grow.
Plants must grow. We must have a finale.
Well, we did put money in for that one.
I'm sorry, he's called up the John Carstairs yet again. He's called up the chief inspector because there's trouble. I'm sorry, Inspector, but this is serious. Some very foolish crooks broke into our plant stall and stole our most valuable specimen. What would that be? I'm no mind reader. They stole a carbon-eating diamond plant from Uranus. What's that? You mean to say? The crazy fools must have taken seriously the newspaper nonsense that's been decorating the front pages. Newspaper nonsense. I thought that plant was worth its weight in platinum. You mean it doesn't turn out diamonds? It turns out diamonds, all right. Big, bright, beautiful stones that weigh 500 carats. What's that done?
Awful lot of carrots.
Big diamond.
But you couldn't sell them for 10 cents in any man's money. I don't get it. Plant. Inspector, that plant eats pure carbon and subjects it to terrific pressure. Its internal energies would give a cyclotron an inferiority complex. But the best it can do with carbon isn't good enough. You get diamonds, sure. Technically, any crystalline aggregate that yields carbon dioxide when burnt on oxygen converts soft iron into steel and is insoluble in acids is a diamond. But that doesn't mean it's the kind of diamond you want your wife to wear at the 200 club. The diamond plant excretes shortly formed diamonds. They're large but nearly structureless. The look of relief spread across McGuire's face. It does. Okay, so all you've lost is a specimen. Yeah, that's all we've lost, Inspector. Getting that plant from Uranus to Earth.
Uranus.
Set the gardens back $40,000. We had to build a special stove in the expedition ship so it could regrow the tentacle it threw around our best field man on Uranus. He's lying under lichenous clay on the northeastern plains simply because he wanted the gardens to have the rarest, most formidable plant in the system. But as you say, it's only a specimen.
No.
that's
There's the line coming up.
We have a pound stop.
Pounds, carry on.
One each.
12.59.
Carry on.
Pound carry on.
Okay, 2 to carry on.
50 to carry on.
250 to carry on. I think we've got a minute left. Michael, use the minute. Come on. Use the minute.
Oh, okay. I thought that collector fellow was killed when one of your rocket tubes black flared.
What's that, 2 pounds?
Black flared. That's it, black flared. Black fire. Black flared. Faltered McGuire. That's what we told the reporters. How many of your secrets do you wish to give to the press? Well,
you're all fine. I'll wait until the end.
I'm a policeman, not a scientist. Rap, McGuire.
I'm a policeman, not a scientist, damn it.
Janet.
It's a very dangerous specimen when on Carstairs. Do you know what happens when you pick up a glass snake? I'm supposed to be a snakeologist now. Although a glass snake is really a lizard, it looks exactly like a snake. When you pick it up, its tail snaps off and twines around your hand. The diamond plant is a little like a glass snake. Well, not tall. If you jar or tilt it, a tentacle snaps off and explodes. But if you happen to be standing close, the tentacle whips around you and goes on exploding until it burns itself out. But the inspector seemed taken aback. How many tentacles has that plant got? 27. 3 of them snapped off in the stove before we could get the plant established in a seed-bed of flaked graphite. One of them missed me by inches. Just now I rescued a guard from another, which snapped off and the crooks were lifting it out. I have nothing but a specimen. Good Lord! Inspector, those crooks think they're going to be diamond brokers. Instead, they'll get turned into impure diamonds themselves. Make quite a lot of carbon. But why aren't they lying dead outside the greenhouse now? He asked. Because they didn't jar the plant more than once. Apparently they're intelligent groups, but not that intelligent, because they're making a bloody huge, gigantic plant with exploding tentacles all over the place. They knew it couldn't be jarred, so they lifted it out on pulleys and carted it away in a cushioned truck. Where were you at all that time? Asleep? Demanded the inspector. Haven't you got more than one guard down there? We were just closing up, Carstairs explained. Boring. You'll have to find your blasted plant before you can give it rosy leaves. Find it, echoed Carstairs, horrified. That's what I said. It's loose somewhere in the city, Mr. Curator. Your vicious killer plant loose in a city of 20 million people who are not criminals. I wonder what the population of the city actually is. You know, if it's like 20 million and one, or 3.
So, it could be like 70 million people there.
Yeah, or a billion.
Or billion.
Yeah,
But only 20 million.
It's 1 o'clock now.
If you want to read, more, this
Yeah.
book is available in a print-on-demand edition, only $23, which brings together all the stories, including the ones left out of the first compilation, Wallies on the Moon and The Heavy Man.
Because we were
On the other hand, if you want the first edition hardback, you're looking at upwards of $100.
Right, can we have, first of all, a round of applause?
Oh, yeah!